You ever get that feeling like you just stepped into someone else's nightmare? Not your dream, not your problem, but somehow, you're the villain the moment you show up. That's exactly what happened the morning I rolled up to my family's old lake cabin. I'd barely cut the engine when I saw her. Karen, 50-something, stiff shoulders, sunglasses like she was guarding nuclear codes, floral blouse flapping in the breeze. She was already on her phone, gesturing wildly toward my truck. Next thing I know, 2 sheriff's deputies pull in behind me, lights flashing like I'd robbed a bank. One of them, kid couldn't be more than 25, walks up like he's playing cop for the first time. "Sir, we've received a complaint of unauthorized access. Can I see your ID and proof of ownership for this property?" Now, I'm standing in the driveway of the house I spent every summer in as a boy, still got the carved initials in the tree by the porch, and this kid wants proof I belong here? I handed him my license and keys without saying a word, because I knew, argue now, and I'm the guy in cuffs on someone's cell phone video. Karen was standing off to the side, arms crossed, grinning like the cat that caught the canary. You ever seen someone so sure they're untouchable, they stop pretending to be polite? That was her. And in that moment, I wasn't angry. I was stunned, because I hadn't even unpacked a single box yet. The deputy came back, said it checked out, but warned me that, according to the Homeowner Association bylaws, I'd need written permission to use the shared road and lakeside access. Shared road? Written permission? We're talking about a gravel path my grandfather bulldozed with his own 2 hands 50 years ago. I looked the deputy dead in the eye. "You telling me I can't drive on my own land?" He shrugged. "Just passing along what was filed with the county last month. If you've got a dispute, I'd take it up with the HOA. And that, my friends, was the first punch. Because here's what they didn't know. My land isn't in their damn association. Never has been. But before I could say a word, Karen walked up and handed me an envelope. Certified mail. Opened it right there. A formal violation notice. $11,000 in fines for unauthorized improvements to the shoreline. Improvements I hadn't even made yet. Because I hadn't even been here since 2003. You ever stand so still, the world just spins around you? She leaned in close. "You're gonna learn we take things seriously around here." I didn't say anything, just nodded, climbed back in my truck, and drove around to the back lot. That night, I didn't sleep. Sat on the porch with a 6-pack and a flashlight, watching the water ripple under moonlight. The next morning, things got worse. I went down to the dock to check the old boat ramp. What I found made my stomach drop. A brand new sign, bolted into a tree. Private property, for HOA members only. They'd even chained off the boat ramp, my family's dock. I started laughing. That kind of laugh that doesn't feel right, like your brain's protecting itself from what your eyes just saw. Took a picture of it, walked back up to the cabin, and called the county office. "Yeah," the clerk told me, "the Homeowner Association filed a jurisdiction update last month. They claim your parcel is under revised governance for shared shoreline maintenance." I asked for the original parcel map. She hesitated. "That's going to take a few days." Then she added, "But you're not the first to call." I hung up and sat on the porch steps for a long time. The past had teeth. And Karen? She was just getting started. If this hits close to home, hit that like button. You'll want to stick around. Because what came next? That changed everything. Let me tell you something about silence. It's never just silence. That second morning at the cabin, it was the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring, like the land itself was waiting for me to either fight or fold. I chose to fight. I drove into town, straight to the planning department. Not the main office, they'd just passed the buck. I found the basement archives, the kind of place with flickering lights and boxes older than I am. There was a clerk down there, name tag said Marlene. Mid-60s, cardigan full of cat hair, eyes sharp as tacks. I showed her my parcel number, told her what was happening. She looked at me like I was asking about buried treasure. "That lake property? You're the 3rd person this month to come asking. Something fishy going on with those HOA folks." Took her an hour, but she found it. The original zoning map from 1978. And there it was. My grandfather's plot, crystal clear, out of bounds. Not part of any homeowner association. It even had a note, private shore rights, unrestricted. I took a picture, made 3 copies. On my way out, Marlene said, "You didn't hear this from me, but the HOA has been filing amendments without community votes, slipping them into the county registrar. I nodded. You just gave me my ammo. You ever feel that heat rise in your chest? Like you finally have a weapon after being slapped with bare hands? That's where I was. I didn't go back to the cabin, not yet. I made one more stop, local print shop. Blew that zoning map up poster-sized, laminated it, rolled it into a tube. If I was going to make a point, it'd be loud. By the time I got back, there were 2 pickup trucks parked near my dock. Contractors. One of them was drilling into the ground, the other had a clipboard. I walked right up. Can I help you? Guy with the clipboard didn't even look up. Installing safety rail per HOA directive. I pointed to the sign still bolted to the tree. This isn't HOA property. You got proof? He asked. I pulled out the laminated map like it was a sword. Right here, filed 1978. This land's mine. And that dock? My grandfather built it before half this neighborhood had plumbing. He looked at the map, then at the guy with the drill. They exchanged that look people give when they realize they've stepped in something deep. Call your supervisor, I said. Now. They packed up without another word. Here's where it gets interesting. That night, I heard footsteps. Not the casual kind. Purposeful. I killed the porch light, stepped into the shadows. 3 figures all in black, walking along the edge of the property line. One of them took a photo of the dock. Another walked around to my truck, wrote something down. I didn't move, just watched. They left without touching anything. But the next morning, a paper was taped to my cabin door. At notice of encroachment, violation, Yars 12B, non-compliant shoreline structure. Printed on HOA letterhead, signed by someone I'd never met. No phone number, no appeal instructions, just a threat. It wasn't just harassment now, it was coordinated. I went to the HOA office, little gray building near the community pool, walked in, got hit with that cold, lemon-scented bureaucratic air. A guy behind the counter, young, polite, clearly new, asked if I had an appointment. Tell Karen Mike's here, she'll know which one. He flinched, then disappeared behind a door. Few minutes later, Karen stepped out, same smug face, only now paired with a clipboard and a coffee mug that said, Queen of the neighborhood. I'm not even kidding. We don't typically meet without notice, she said, fake smiling. I held up the violation. This came without notice. She glanced at it like it was junk mail. Your shore improvements are in conflict with community code. I haven't touched the shore. That dock's been altered. It's been like that since 1992. She shrugged. Then it's 30 years out of compliance. You ever want to throw something, but you're too damn tired? I didn't argue, just dropped the laminated map on her counter. Read it, then go near my land again, and I'll have your contractors charged with trespassing. She laughed. You don't scare me, Mike. Good, I said. I'm not trying to, just making sure you understand. And I walked out. But here's the thing. Bluffing only works when the other side thinks you're bluffing. That night, the chain on my boat ramp was doubled. 2 locks this time. You ever feel like someone's daring you to burn the whole place down? Because that's where I was. And I wasn't the only one watching anymore. I didn't sleep that night either. Not from fear, from calculation. You see, there's a moment in every fight where you realize you're not in a disagreement. You're in a war. And if you're going to survive, you'd better stop playing defense. So, the next morning, I drove straight to the bait shop down near the dam. Not for worms or tackle, for Earl. Earl's the kind of man who knows every inch of land around the lake. He ran maintenance contracts for the county back in the 80s. Now, he sells minnows and tells stories nobody believes. But I believed him, because 20 years ago, he fixed my granddad's boat ramp with a backhoe he borrowed from the fire department. He lit up when he saw me. Mike, that really you? Last I heard, you moved to Phoenix. Miss I smiled, moved back, trying to unearth some truth around here. His grin faded. This about Karen's circus? Exactly. We sat on the dock behind the shop. He lit a cigarette, stared at the water. You know they've been rewriting boundary claims for 2 years now? Started with that family from Lot 16. Took their fishing pier down in broad daylight. HOA said it was unsafe. He handed me a rolled-up tube, surveyor's copy of the 1976 floodplain study, marked in red pencil, my family's parcel, dock included. It wasn't just legal, it was grandfathered. You just gave me gold, I said. Earl shook his head. Nah, I gave you dynamite. Use it smart. I drove back with the document on the passenger seat like it was a loaded weapon. Parked behind the cabin, walked straight to the dock, and taped a laminated copy of that survey right over the HOA's private sign. Then I added my own. Not HO property. Trespassers will be recorded. And yes, I installed a camera. 2, actually. You never know. That evening, something happened I didn't expect. Lily showed up. Now, I'd seen her before. Lives 2 cabins over. Always jogging, earbuds in, never involved. But that day she walked up with a casserole in one hand and guilt in her eyes. I heard what they're doing, she said. My husband's, well, he used to be the HOA's legal consultant. I raised an eyebrow. Used to be? She looked down. He left last month, said Karen's going too far. He gave me something in case things got ugly. She pulled out a USB drive. Meeting minutes, internal notes, drafts of amendments that were never voted on. I blinked. Why bring this to me? Because my husband's name is still on one of those forged filings, and if Karen goes down, she's taking him with her unless someone exposes the truth first. I took it. You sure you want to be part of this? She nodded. I'm already in it. So are you. Funny thing is, I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man standing in a minefield with a map drawn in invisible ink. Later that night, I opened the files. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger. Draft memos stating the HOA would extend influence to lakeside parcels by manipulating flood boundary reports, emails discussing which inspectors were friendly, a note from Karen herself. If we don't move now, that old man's going to ruin the whole project. Old man. That hit me. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark. The cabin smelled like cedar and dust and something old that wouldn't go away. Have you ever had a moment where your past, your family, your principles, all get pulled into someone else's agenda? I wasn't just defending land. I was defending my name, my grandfather's sweat, my father's ashes under the oak tree by the porch. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to play their game anymore. I was going to change the rules. And believe me, when I did, they didn't see it coming. Let me back up for a second. You ever play poker with someone who thinks they're a genius, but their only real move is bluffing hard and hoping you'll fold first? That was Karen. Only this time, I had her cards, and they weren't pretty. The next morning, I drove into town again. I made copies of the USB drive's contents at the public library, left one with a buddy who works as a land surveyor, and another with my lawyer. Not the kind of guy you see on billboards, but solid, quiet, dangerous if he needs to be. Then I called the county zoning office and requested a formal review of jurisdiction's boundaries on lakeside properties. I knew that would rattle the cage. I didn't have to wait long. That evening, I got a notice taped to my cabin door again, only this one wasn't from the Homeowner Association. It was from the sheriff's office. Notice of public safety violation. Unpermitted structures in flood risk area. That hit like a sucker punch. My grandfather's dock had been there since 1964, but now, suddenly, it was a safety risk. I knew who was behind it, so I marched straight to Karen's house. Big white colonial, yard like a golf course, porch decorated like it was permanently stuck in the 4th of July. I rang the bell. She opened the door with that same smug expression, coffee cup in hand, like she'd been expecting me. I take it you got the memo, she said. You sent the sheriff? I filed a concern. What they do with it is up to them. You know damn well that dock's older than most houses in this zip code. Then maybe it's time we modernize. You ever see someone set fire to your history and call it progress? I've got documents, maps, internal memos. Your own words, Karen. You're expanding HOA control without votes. You're lying to the county. And you're targeting anyone who pushes back. She didn't even blink. You think you're the first? You think some laminated map and a casserole-delivering neighbor are going to stop us? That's when I realized something. This wasn't about me. It never was. Karen was building an empire. She wasn't just power tripping. She had a plan. The HOA wasn't expanding by accident. She was manipulating every loophole, rewriting boundaries, filing silent amendments. She was turning the lake into a gated empire, parcel by parcel. I left without saying another word. That night, I sat on the porch with Earl and Lily. We cracked beers, spread out the maps, the flood reports, the fake minutes. Earl was quiet, flipping through the files. "This isn't just shady," he said finally. "It's criminal." "But nobody's going to arrest a woman for filing a boundary map," Lily added, "even if she owns half the zoning board." "She doesn't," I said, "but she thinks she does." We spent hours cross-checking the floodplain map with the parcel overlays. And that's when Lily found it. A discrepancy. Karen's own parcel, it overlapped into restricted wetlands. Meaning she'd violated the same codes she was throwing at everyone else. That was our in. Next morning, I filed a formal complaint, anonymously, with attachments, photographic evidence, GPS coordinates, time-stamped. 2 days later, a truck from the Department of Environmental Oversight pulled up in front of her house. Now, listen, I'm not a vindictive man, but watching her expression as that inspector walked up the driveway, that was something. She tried to smile. He didn't. Just handed her a form and pointed at her backyard. She looked across the street, saw me. I didn't wave, just nodded. But the war wasn't over, not even close. Because that same evening, someone threw a rock through my window, wrapped in a flyer. "Some people don't belong here." No signature, just hate. You ever feel your stomach turn ice cold in July? I taped the window up with cardboard, sat on the couch, and just breathed. Earl was gone. Lily was home with her kid. And me? I felt alone in a way I hadn't felt in years. You ever think about leaving it all behind? Selling the land, walking away, letting them win? Because I did. That night, I almost packed a bag. Almost. But then, I opened the drawer under the stairs, pulled out an old photo of my father on that dock, holding a catfish the size of a toddler, grinning like nothing in the world could touch him. And I remembered why I came back. This wasn't just a place. It was home. And if Karen wanted a war, I was done playing fair. But here's what she didn't know. I hadn't even started yet. I didn't tell anyone what happened that night. Not Earl, not Lily. That rock through my window, that wasn't meant to scare me. It was a message from someone who wanted me to know. I was now a target. And still, I stayed. Next morning, I walked the property line with a camera in my hand and a steel pipe in my boot. I wasn't looking for trouble, but I wasn't going to blink if it found me again. And that's when I saw it. A brand new stake in the ground, bright orange flag, HOA marker, 10 feet inside my property line. I followed the trail. There were 3 more, zigzagging toward the dock. And standing by the last one, Nolan. You remember Nolan, Karen's loyal little clipboard soldier, early 40s, khakis always too pressed, voice like an insurance commercial. He didn't even flinch when he saw me coming. "You're trespassing," I said. He smirked. "HOA's conducting a secondary survey. We have reason to believe your recent shoreline alterations extend into community-controlled flood easement." "It's funny," I said, "because the county has reason to believe Karen's flower beds violate wetland protection laws." That wiped the smirk off his face. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice. "You think this is about you? Karen's pushing for rezoning, private lake access, whole projects tied to developer money. You win, they lose millions." I stared at him. "And you?" He looked down. "I used to believe in it. Now, I don't even know what I'm defending anymore." "Then stop." "It's not that simple." He walked away. And that's when it clicked. Karen wasn't working alone. She had backing, financing, a bigger plan than just petty HOA power. If she rezoned that lake, she'd turn public access into premium property, sell it off piece by piece. This wasn't just about control. It was about profit. I needed to hit her where it hurt. So I made a call to a woman named Valeria. We went to high school together. Now she's a private appraiser and legal boundary consultant. Think librarian meets forensic detective. She agreed to meet me the next morning at the cabin. She showed up in a gray Jeep, clipboard under one arm, laser scanner in the other. "Mike, haven't seen you in 20 years. Guess I picked a hell of a reunion." She spent 3 hours walking the property, scanning, measuring, cross-referencing files I gave her. Then she sat me down. Karen's entire survey is built on a misfiled adjustment from 6 years ago. It was supposed to update an interior lot, but someone, intentionally or not, shifted the shoreline reference. In English, they moved the lines, and no one caught it because the county's digital archive was never updated. But your land, it's clean, fully exempt. She handed me a notarized report. I looked her in the eye. How fast can you get this on record? She smiled. Already did. That night, I didn't sleep again. Not out of fear, out of anticipation. I set the lights on motion sensors, charged the cameras, refilled the thermos, and sat on the porch like a man waiting for a storm he invited himself. It hit just after 2 a.m. Flashlights, rustling, a whisper, then the sound of boots on gravel. I stood up, silent. They came into view, 3 of them, one with bolt cutters, one holding what looked like a crowbar, third one hanging back. They didn't see me until I flipped the switch. Floodlight hit them full, my voice followed. Smile for the camera. They froze, then scattered. One tripped over the planter, another dropped the crowbar, third one ran straight into the fence post and cursed loud enough to wake the dead. By morning, I'd printed stills from the footage. One face I recognized, HOA board member, another, someone I'd seen leaving Karen's house the week before. I didn't call the cops. I sent copies to the county registrar, to the Environmental Oversight Department, and, most importantly, to the developer listed in the rezoning application. The subject line? Your partners are playing dirty. Might want to rethink your investment. Now, I'm not saying that one email can burn down a scheme, but the next day I saw a moving truck outside Nolan's place, and a new face at the HOA office. Karen didn't come out. But the air had shifted. You could feel it. Karen knew I was still standing, and worse, I wasn't alone anymore. You ever went around and still feel like you lost ground? That was me the next morning. Sure, the footage was out. The documents were filed, the floodlight did its job, but I woke up to something that rattled me more than anything before. Silence. Not the kind from before, when the land held its breath. This was pointed, manufactured. Nobody waved. Cars slowed past my driveway. The woman who jogged by every morning, she crossed the road. Even the hardware store clerk didn't meet my eyes when I came in to buy more plywood. Karen hadn't just lost ground. She'd started pulling strings harder. And folks, they were choosing sides. Let me tell you, when a town starts treating you like a stranger, even your own front porch feels like borrowed space. Lily came by that afternoon. She looked tired, shadows under her eyes, shoulders pulled in like she was bracing for something. You okay? I asked. She didn't answer right away, just stared out at the lake. They stopped inviting my son to neighborhood stuff, she said finally. Said they didn't want drama. I clenched my jaw. You knew this could happen. I did, but it doesn't make it easier. She handed me an envelope. Inside, minutes from the last HOA board meeting. They'd voted, without public notice, to request that the county place a moratorium on any private development near the lake under investigation. That meant me. They wanted my land frozen. No repairs, no renovations, not even lawn work. You ever feel like they're trying to erase you one paper at a time? I muttered. Lily looked at me. What are you going to do? I didn't answer, not yet. That night, I walked the shoreline in the dark, flashlight off, moon reflecting off the water like glass. I stopped by the dock, ran my hand along the wood. My father had sealed that edge with a rusted screwdriver and a prayer the year before he passed. And I asked myself a question I hadn't dared before. What if they win? What if I fight and scream and push and they still take it? What if this place just becomes another casualty in their march to organize progress? I sat down on the edge, feet hanging over the water. I thought of my dad, of Earl, of Lily's kids sitting alone while the other kids played flag football across the road. And I knew one thing. If I walked now, they'd come for the next guy harder. They'd learn that you can silence someone by making their life just a little harder each day. Isolate them, shame them, bleed them out with policies and fake smiles. That was their game. But I had one last card. So, the next morning I drove 2 counties over. Well, not to a lawyer. To a man named Jerome, Vietnam vet, retired civil engineer, and my dad's oldest friend. He'd helped my grandfather file the original shoreline permits by hand. Had copies of everything, originals too. We spent 6 hours digging through filing cabinets and dusty drawers in his garage, and at the bottom of one milk crate, under a stack of water damage reports, we found it. The original access easement agreement for the Lakeside Trail, signed by the county and marked with a red X. That X proved something Karen never expected. The trail she claimed as HOA maintained, it was never private. It was part of the original public lake perimeter, funded with taxpayer money in the 70s. And tampering with it? That was a crime. Jerome scanned it for me, made 3 notarized copies. And I made 3 deliveries. 1 to the county clerk, 1 to the environmental agency, and 1 hand-delivered to Karen's mailbox. No note, no warning, just the truth. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat under the porch light, waited. Hours passed. And then her car, she didn't get out. Just sat there, engine running, staring at the cabin like it might bite her. Then slowly she backed out of the gravel and drove away. No more messages, no more signs, no more rocks. But it wasn't over. Not until she broke first. Funny thing is, when someone like Karen finally realizes they're out of moves, they don't admit it. They just disappear behind silence, let the fog settle, and hope everyone forgets who lit the fire in the first place. But I don't forget. 3 days passed, no new threats, no new violations. Just quiet. But not the kind that soothes you. This quiet felt like standing in a burned-out house, the smoke still in your lungs. Then came the letter, hand-delivered, certified. The envelope was crisp, like they wanted to pretend they still had control of the narrative. Inside, a single page. Karen was resigning from the Homeowner Association. Due to personal health considerations and shifting responsibilities, it said. No mention of investigations, forged documents, or midnight trespassing. No ownership. Just bureaucratic fluff. But the last paragraph hit hard. All pending disputes regarding lakeside governance are to be closed until further notice. The board will no longer pursue enforcement measures on parcels adjacent to public access zones. They folded. No apology, no admission, but they folded. Now, you'd think that would feel like victory, and part of it did. I cracked a beer that night, walked the dock barefoot like I used to when I was a kid, toes dipping into the cold water. But winning doesn't undo the damage. Lily's kid still wasn't getting invited to the neighborhood games. Nolan sold his place within the week. Earl's bait shop got tagged with spray paint, and the county, they swept it all up in paperwork and moved on. That's the thing about small-town wars. No medals, no parades, just survivors. You ever win a fight and feel like nothing changed but you? I started waking up earlier, sitting on the porch before sunrise, before the world got loud again. I'd sip my coffee, listen to the birds, and stare at the trail Karen tried to steal. One morning, I watched a teenage girl jog by and slow down just long enough to nod at me. First time in weeks anyone made eye contact. It felt like something shifted. The next week, the HOA hosted a community picnic. Invitations went out. Flyers stapled to trees like it was a block party from a sitcom. I went. Not for them. For me. I stood near the grill, didn't eat, didn't smile. Just watched. Faces that had once looked through me now nodded politely. A few offered awkward hellos. Even the new HOA rep, some retired dentist from Wisconsin, stammered out something about restoring harmony. But Karen, she wasn't there. Rumor was she'd packed up and left town in the middle of the night. Off-market sale, quiet move, just gone. No ceremony, no goodbye, just a vacancy sign where her ego used to live. And me, I stayed. I restained the dock, put new hinges on the gate, replanted the edge of the trail with wildflowers like my mom used to. You ever reclaim something that was almost taken from you? Not just land, but pride? That's what this was. One morning, I found a note taped to the old tree where my grandfather carved his initials. No signature, just 5 words. You did the right thing. Sometimes that's enough. So here I am, still on this porch, still staring at that lake. If you've made it this far, if this story meant something to you, do me a favor, hit that like button, or drop a comment, or just sit quiet for a moment and think about what's worth protecting. Because this wasn't about beating Karen. It was about remembering who I am, and making damn sure they don't forget it either.